העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם הוא גשר צר, כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם הוא גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם הוא גשר צר, כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם הוא גשר, והעיקר לא לפחד כלל, לא לפחד, והעיקר לא לפחד כלל, לא לפחד, כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם הוא גשר צר, כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם הוא גשר, והעיקר לא לפחד כבר, לא לפחד, והעיקר לא לפחד כבר, לא לפחד. As I walk along this very narrow bridge, I will not be afraid, knowing you are with me. As I walk along this very narrow bridge, I will not fear, knowing you are near. והעיקר לא לפחד כלל, לא לפחד, והעיקר לא לפחד כלל, לא לפחד, והעיקר לא לפחד כלל, לא לפחד, והעיקר לא לפחד כלל, לא לפחד.
Good morning, Shabbat Shalom, Boker Tov. It is a pleasure to be with you on this bright, beautiful, sunny, warm Pittsburgh Shabbat morning. We give thanks for this. We give thanks for so many blessings in our lives, beginning our service on page 80. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image of God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me free. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kijanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah. And on page 88, I continue, as I've been doing for the past few weeks, using a pre-recorded video. Please excuse the wardrobe change, to add some textual richness, some contour, some context to our Shabbat morning prayers. Elu divarim she'en lehem shi'or, she'adam ochel perotehem ba'olam hazeh, va'keren kayemet lo le'olam haba ve'elu hein, kibud av ve'em, ukmilut chasadim, v'hashkamat beit hamidrash shacharit va'arvit, v'hachnasat orchim, uvikor cholim, v'achnasat kala, uvayat hamet, v'yun tefillah, v'hava'at shalom bein adam l'chavero, v'talmud Torah keneged kulam. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer and making peace among people. But the study of Torah is equal to them all. The teachings of Rabbi Yisrael Meyer Kagan, a 19th century rabbi, are preserved in the work Chafetz Chaim on the Siddur, where he shares 3 vignettes about the importance of hospitality as mentioned in this prayer. He writes, "We find in the Talmud, Rabbi Yochanan said, being hospitable to strangers is as great as rising early to go to the house of study and prayer. Rabbi Dimi said, it is greater than rising early to go to the Beit Midrash. Well, according to this, if somebody gets up early to go to the house of prayer and he comes across people passing by in need of hospitality, is it better that he should devote himself to the mitzvah, the religious obligation of giving them hospitality, than going to prayer? Could this be? When does this hold true? When he has no one at home who can welcome these passers-by properly. But if he has someone at home who can receive them with proper hospitality, he has to go to his prayers. Unless the passers-by are unusually distinguished, then it is fitting that he himself should attend to their needs." Though in the very next teaching, he unqualifies that statement, reminding us that hospitality matters no matter whom you are talking to. "Do not look for defects or shortcomings," he writes, "in any visitor who comes to seek your assistance. If one does not wash their hands properly before a meal, or is not careful about the benediction over bread, or does not say grace after meals, and so on, treat him as you would your own son, whom you would not drive out of your home even if he didn't behave as you wished." And finally, a teaching from Torah. The Torah devotes a special section to hospitality by telling in full detail how Abraham our father observed this mitzvah. It is a religious duty that applies in regard to rich and poor alike. All are to be welcomed cheerfully. And if it happens that the invited people are distinguished, the host should not rely on others but attend to them himself. When Abraham was ill, he ran toward the people passing by and pleaded with them that they should do him a favor and be his guests. And it was a hot day. First he brought them water so they could wash and refresh themselves. Then he invited them that while he would be busy preparing a meal, they should rest under their tree. Sensing, however, that they were in a great hurry, he assured them he would not detain them long, but serve them only a piece of bread. For this is the way of the righteous and the pious. They say little and do much. He prepared for them a very large meal, and from this we can see the importance of this great mitzvah of welcoming the stranger. We continue now on page 96 in our prayer book, a psalm for the Sabbath day. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, la'agid baboker chasdecha, ve'emunatcha balelot, alei asor ve'alei navel, alei higayon bechinor. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Ki simchtani Adonai b'fo'olecha, b'maaseh yadecha aranin, ma gadlu ma'asech Adonai, me'od amku machshevotecha. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. Our Baruch Hu praise, the formal entry to worship, can be found on page 108 in our prayer book. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamivorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. In the beginning, even then, a new light was sown for the righteous, a promise that your light would become the catalyst, first for order and then for hope. Author of language and light, help us to use words as you have, to cast light into dark waters, to draw out justice and truth. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer hame'orot. And we continue with the watchwords of our faith, Shema Yisrael, pages 114 and 115. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Leolam va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam le'ot al yadecha v'ayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha Leman tizkeru v'azitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Amen. As we prepare to rise for our Amidah, we ask God to rise in support of us and all in need in this world. On the bottom of page 122, Tzor Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Uvdechinu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael, Go aleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agidilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Agadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi'u la'livnei b'neihem leman shemo b'ava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham, Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol atah Rav le'Hoshia, Morid atah, Mechalkel Chayim b'Chesed, Mechayeh HaKol b'Rachamim Rabim, Somech noflim verofeh cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umido melach, melech memit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'emanat ala chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol. To all generations we will declare your greatness, and for all eternity proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O God, shall never depart from our lips. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. We prepare now for our reading of Torah. Parashat Bahar brings us closer and closer to the end of the book of Leviticus. And again, I've added words of our tradition, deeper words of understanding to our reading of text this morning. The blessing before the reading of Torah can be found on page 250. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach. Baruch Adonai Yimvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. In her book, The Five Books of Miriam, a women's commentary on Torah, Dr. Ellen Frankel shares this summary of this week's Torah portion, Parashat Bahar. This parasha presents the laws concerning the observance of the sabbatical and Jubilee years, she writes. The Israelites are commanded to give their fields and vineyards a complete rest every 7th year, eating only what grows from the uncultivated ground. After 7 sabbaticals, that is, the 50th year, the Israelites are commanded to proclaim liberty throughout the land for all of its inhabitants. On Yom Kippur of that year, the shofar is to be sounded, announcing the Jubilee, year of release, during which all tribal lands are to return to their original borders, and all slaves are to go free. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe Bahar Sinai lemor, Daber el bnei Yisrael va'amarta alehem, ki tavo'u El haaretz asher ani noten lachem, v'savta haaretz Shabbat l'Adonai. Sheish shanim tizra sadecha, v'sheish shanim tizmor karmecha, v'asavta et tevuata, v'ashana hashvi'it. Shabbat Shabbaton yeh la'aretz, Shabbat l'Adonai, Sadcha lo tizra, v'charmecha lo tizmor. Et zefiach ketzircha lo tiktzor, את ענבי נזירך לא תבצור, שנת שבתון יהיה לארץ. והייתה שבת הארץ לכם לאוכלה, לך ולעבדך ולאמתך, ולזכירך ולתושבך הגרים עמך, ולבהמתך ולחיה אשר בארצך תהיה כל תבואתה לאכול. וספרת לך 7 שבתות שנים, 7 שנים 7 פעמים, והיו לך ימי 7 שבתות שנים, 49 שנה. ועברת שופר תרועה בחודש השביעי, בעשור לחודש, ביום הכיפורים, תעבירו שופר בכל ארצכם, וקידשתם את שנת 5 שנה, ובראתם דרור בארץ לכל יושביה, יובל היא תהיה לכם, ושבתם איש אל אחוזתו, ואיש אל משפחתו תשובו. יובל היא שנת 50 שנה תהיה לכם, לא תזרעו ולא תקצרו את צפיחך, ולא תבצרו את נזיריה, כי יובל היא קודש תהיה לכם, מן השדה תאכלו את תבואתה. בשנת היובל הזאת תשובו איש אל אחוזתו, וכי תמכרו ממכר לעמיתך, או קנו מיד עמיתך, אל תונו איש את אחיו. במספר שנים אחר היובל תקנה מאת עמיתך, במספר 2 תבואות ימכר לך, לפי רוב השנים. תרבה מקנתו, ולפי מאות השנים תמעיט מקנתו. כי מספר תבואות הוא מוכר לך, ולא תונו איש את עמיתו, ויראת מאלוהיך, כי אני אדוני אלוהיכם. ועשיתם את חוקותי ומשפטי תשמורו, ועשיתם אותם, וישבתם על הארץ לבטח, ונתנה הארץ פריה, ואכלתם לשובע, וישבתם לבטח עליה. וכי תאמרו מה נאכל בשנה השביעית, הן לא נזרע ולא נאסוף את תבואתנו, וציוויתי את ברכתי לכם בשנה השישית, ועשת את התבואה לשלוש השנים, וזרתם את השנה השמינית, ואכלתם מן התבואה ישן עד השנה התשיעית, עד בוא תבואתה תאכלו ישן, והארץ לא תמכר לצמיתות, כי לי הארץ כגרים ותושבים אתם עמדי, ובכל ארץ אחוזתכם גאולה תבנו לארץ. כי ימוך אחיך ומחר מאחוזתו, ובגאלו הקרוב אליו, וגאל את ממכר אחיו. ואיש כי לא יהיה לו גואל, והשיגה ידו ומצא כדי גאולתו,
והשב את שני ממכרו, והשיב את העודף לאיש אשר מכר לו, ושב לאחוזתו, ואם לא מצא ידו די השיב לו, והיה ממכרו ביד הקונה אותו עד שנת היובל, ויצא ביובל ושב לאחוזתו, ואיש כי ימכור בית מושב עיר חומה, ביתה גאולתו עד תום שנת ממכרו, ימים תהיה גאולתו. ואם לא יגאל עד מלאת לו שנה תמימה, וקם הבית אשר בעיר אשר לא חומה לצמיתות, לקונה אותו לדורותיו, לא יצא ביובל, ובתי החצרים אשר אין להם חומה סביב על שדה הארץ יחשב, גאולה תהיה לו, וביובל יצא. והרי הלוויים בתי הרי אחוזתם, גאולת עולם תהיה ללוויים, ואשר יגאל מן הלוויים, ויצא ממכר בית, ועיר אחוזתו ביובל, כי בתי הרי הלוויים היא אחוזתם בתוך בני ישראל, ושדה מגרש עריהם לא ימכר, כי אחוזת עולם הוא להם.
Dr. Frankel's commentary continues, imagining a conversation with women throughout Jewish history. Our daughters ask, she writes, are sabbatical and jubilee years intended for Israelite women as well as for men? Huldah the preacher answers, yes, God addresses both men and women concerning these laws. Every Israelite is to observe them, as it is written, you, your male and female slaves. During the sabbatical year, all Israelites are to cease cultivating their fields and vineyards in order to allow a year of complete rest for the land. Beruria, the scholar, elaborates. What's especially remarkable about the Israelite sabbatical law is its progressive social framework. We can see this most clearly in the laws governing the Jubilee, the 7th sabbatical year. Every 50th year, all of Israelite society is to return to its original tribal borders, and no Israelite is to remain indentured or in debt. Leah the namer adds, the term Jubilee comes from the Hebrew word yovel, meaning ram's horn, since blasts of the ram's horn were to inaugurate this special year. Our daughters ask, but are women supposed to be included in the redistribution of wealth? Or does God address only the men this time, as it is written, each man shall return to his holding? The sages in our own time answer, for the most part, the mechanism of the sabbatical and jubilee years merely restored the status quo ante. Since women didn't tend to own property, they couldn't regain what was never theirs to lose. But women did participate actively in the economic life of the country, so they certainly benefited from the year off from agricultural labor, as well as from the Jubilee year's release from personal or family debt. Our bubbies object, Dr. Frankel writes. But how could they ever enjoy time off? Who else was going to take care of the children, prepare the meals, weave the clothing, tend the house, and deliver babies? Our daughters add, think of all the untapped potential still remaining in this ancient model of social reengineering. I would add, Think of all the untapped potential remaining in this ancient model of social reengineering. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. We turn in our Sidurim now to page 294, preparing for words of Kaddish Yatom and remembering upon whose shoulders we stand this day. This Shabbat, we commemorate the yahrzeit, the anniversary of the passing of David Avner, Jack N. Baver, Zola Bremen, Henry Kaplan, Paul Cohen, Henry J. Cooper, Robert David Diskin, Louise Ehrenrich, Glenn Farrell, Irvin Chick Frank, Hyman Freeman, Herbert Samuel Horowitz, Irene Kalick, Molly Carlson, Stephen N. Kaufman, Patricia Leopold, Harry Levin, Seymour Mahler, Helen Maidman, Dr. Florence L. Marcus, Meyer Moidel, Herman Moss, Carl Pittle, Nathaniel Rash, Janet Chetlin Rosecrans, Miriam Rosen, Eleanor Rosen, Esther Roth, Ethel Copeland Rotman, Paul Sapir, Louise Simons, Prudence Sternheim, Herman Turian, Nathan Turk, Milton Watzman, Bessie Wiesenthal, Eileen Wolf, Ethel Wolfson, Ida Reba Zakowitz, and Samuel Zisman. Yehi zichronam livracha, may their memories be for us an everlasting blessing. Words of Kaddish Yatom, page 294. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'izman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehi shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei al-maya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha barich hu le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Hosei shalom b'mramav Say shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May God makes peace in the highest of heavens, make peace for us and for all who mourn. And together we say,